Hello friends, welcome back to the video lecture series on Python programming. Uh, Database and file programming is the next thing that we're going to touch upon. Now, in the last video, we have seen how a simple desktop application can be built using the Python Tkinter model. Right? Now, when we try to build an application, it is not only the front end. We all know that certain data which we collect from the front end needs to be persisted or needs to be stored in a database, right? So that even when the application is closed or even when the workstation is shut down, the data is being maintained, and the next time the application is opened up, it can be when it can fetch the data from the data store, which is a database in our case. So what we are going to look at now is how to store data into a simple Rdbms table, right? And for that, we are also going to use the same Tkinter module that we had built last day and in the last lecture. And based on that, we are going to collect the data from the user, and that same data we are going to save in our database table. And when we try to bring it back, we will bring it back from the database and show it in the screen, right? So this is what we are going to try achieve here. Once we are able to achieve this much, I mean, you can all understand that the remaining part is not so difficult. You can always try to extend it and do it yourself, right? So let's start off. So again, we are going to use the spider for doing the same thing. So in the spider last day, we are building the simple dialog having multiple edit boxes where we were trying to enter the data, right? So the dialog looked something of this sort, right? A very simple dialog having roll number entry boxes for roll number, age, name, age, address, and email, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to use the save button, and using the save button we are going to save the data from the dialog to the database. Now what database are we going to use? For that we are going to use the MySQL database. Okay, so let's just open the MySQL database. Let me just open it from here. So this is the MySQL. So I'll just open the MySQL Workbench, right? So when I go to the MySQL Workbench, it opens up. I just open the local instance and it asks for the password, obviously. So I enter my password and I open it, right? Now I have a very simple data table uh, uh, called applications, and the name of the database that I've created, the Rdbms that I've created in MySQL, the name is students, right? So let me just write a simple query, and I'm sure all of you know what is a query and how to write basic simple queries. So select star from students. So that is the name of the database dot applications, right? This is the table. So when I run it, it will give a dump of my student dot applications table, right? It has got corresponding attributes: row, name, age, address, email. And that's exactly the same what you have got here, right? Here also we have the user interfaces, I mean the entry boxes for role, name, age, address, and email. So what we are going to do is for each of these values which are being entered by the user, we are going to take these values from the corresponding entry boxes, and we are going to run a insert query, a basic insert query. That is what we need to do, right? When we want to enter certain values into certain columns, sorry, rows and columns in a table, we just have to use the insert query, right? So that is exactly what we are going to do. And this save button we are going to use for saving that data, right? So let's do that. So what I will do is I will change this save function to do this thing, right? But before going there, let me just run you through how to do that. So when we do this kind of a thing, this is a simple prelude, let's skip it. So what we have to first do is we have to import the MySQL connector module, because this is the module, this is the Python module which is going to help you connect with the particular Rdbms. That's what we will need, right? So how can you do that? Simply using the command python minus m pip install, pip install. We all know that that's a command for installing any package or any module, and then mysql dash connector, and this you have to run in the anaconda prompt, right? I have done just a few minutes ago, right? So I have run this query and run this command, and this is how the mysql connector module got installed, right? Once you do that, then you have to import it. Straightforward thing, you have to import mysql.connector. Then you have to create a connection to the database before you start executing the SQL strings or the queries. You have to first establish the connection with the database. So here we are talking about the MySQL database. So we have to give the credentials of the MySQL database, right? What are the credentials that you need? First is which host. So either if you are connecting to a remote host, you have to give the signature of that remote host IP address. Then you have to give the user, right? So what user name you are going to use to connect to it. There can be multiple usernames, and different users will have different privileges, and then the password corresponding to the user, right? So once you do that, then you'll see that you're going to be able to connect to it. Then what you will do is, okay, here I'm connecting to the local host. I mean, the MySQL server is residing in my own workstation or laptop, right? So that's why I'm using the local host. And then the username, I'm going to use my username. What is the username I'm going to use? So my username is Amit, and my password is password 123 hash. Okay. So then what you are going to do? You have to execute the query. How can you do that? First, you have to create an object, my cursor, which is basically the connection that you created using the connect function. So you have to use the connect function first. Yeah, sorry, you have to use the connect function first, where you have to pass this whole string, giving the host details, then the username and the password. Okay, and that you are going to store in the mydb object. Then sorry, not mydb, this should be the con object. I'm sorry, I think this is not correct. Then using the con object, you have to use the con.cursor function to open the cursor, where you can use the execution, and use it for execution. Then you can do the mycursor.execute and write the query string. This is the query string, this is the insert query string which we are going to do. And then con.commit to commit the execution of the query, right? So this is the simple thing that we have to do to write this code in here, right? This save code, right? So I have already imported the mysql.connector, right? This is done. So next, what do I have to do? I have to write this function, right? This connect function, the cursor function, then we have to build the query and the commit, right? This is what we are going to do. So I do it. So what do I do it? Do here? So I get the different entry box values. So e1.get, e2.get, e3.get, e4.get, and e5.get. So each of them I do store in a particular string, right? Why do I need to do that? Because I need to plug that into the insert query. Then I write the query string, right? I have to build the query string. So insert into students.applications values, and then I pass on each of the different uh, values, right? Whichever I collect from the entry boxes. Mind one thing, whichever field accepts a string, you have to prefix and suffix it by a quote. and whichever takes in uh, this thing integer value, you don't have to do anything. You can just put it there, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. To enter the string or to insert the string, you have to prefix and suffix it by a single quote. Otherwise, if it is a normal value, an integer value, you can just pass it right, right like that. So I build a connection string. Then I have this my cursor con.cursor, right? And then I have this execute query, right? I do execute with the query string that I have built right now. And then I do a con.commit, right? This is how I commit the inserted values, right? So let's try to do that. If I just come to the MySQL console and see whether there is any data, there is absolutely no data. So let me try to enter one row of data in the table. So let me put in the roll number as 1, the name as something, say Alice Wonder, right? And then the age as 12, address as say Gray Street. Then I give the email as alice at the rate yahoo.com, right? So once I have that, I have to click on which button? I have to click on the save button, because that is going to invoke the save function, and within the save function, all the values are going to be taken from the uh, entry boxes, and then the query is going to be built here. So this is the entry box for E1, entry box E2. So E1 gets into str1, E2 gets into str2, E3 gets into str3, and when I build the insert query, see, the roll number is an integer, so no quotes are being added to it. Then the second one, the name is a string, so a single quote before the string and a single quote after the string. Then the third one is the age. Then again, age, you don't have to put anything, it's an integer, right? Then you have the address and email, both of them you need single quotes, prefixed and suffixed, right? So let's now press on the save button, right? So when I go to the MySQL and I run the same select, there should be at least one row returned here. Let's see. Yes, that is exactly what is being done, right? I can see the row which has been inserted to figure out here, right? So this is one part of it where I'm able to put in or insert certain values into the database. Now let's try to do the other way around. Let's try to put, find some value from the database and display it in the UI. That's the other thing you need to do. So both way communication will be established. So let's try to do a very simple thing. Let's try to select the roll number, highest roll number from the rows which are there and display it. Okay, display by a simple print message or whatever, right? We'll just write a very simple query, and we are going to use, let me close this one. So we are going to use this other show message function. We are going to change this one, and we are going to show the maximum roll number, which here is 1, so it should show 1 here, right, in the screen. Let's try to do that. So here what I will do is, what I've done is, I have again built a query, right? But here the query built is to select something from the dataset. So last one was insert, this is a select. So I select the max roll number because I want to get the last roll number from the students.applications table. And what should it return? Let me just run the same thing in the MySQL console. So if I run this one, just replace this by this run this thing, so it should return me this 1, right? That is exactly what I'm expecting to receive, right? And again the same thing, I'm opening a connection, and then I am actually trying to execute. So I'm opening a cursor then, and then executing the query. This is the query 2, so I'm executing this query, and then I'm printing. So I will print in the console right here the value, and it's going to be a tuple return, right? So let me do that. Let me just run this application. Now, when I do a show message, it should return me, it should first fire this select query. Once the select query is being fired or executed, it should get the one as the return value, and that one should be shown in the console. So let me do this. Show message. So see, here I'm getting this one as a return value, right? This is exactly how we can interact, or we can write very simple programs to interact or to establish the interaction between a desktop application and our RDBMS. So here we have done it using Tkinter to build the desktop application, and the corresponding database being stored or created in MySQL, right? So hopefully you will be also able to create more complicated applications, because once you understand the fundamentals, the rest is like you're going to play with the same thing in a little more complex fashion, right? So you can do that. So hope you have learned how to work with the database from a desktop application. When we come back, we are going to show the same thing, how to do it with a file. So instead of a database, if we want to do the same thing using a file, how can we do that? So stay tuned. Thank you very much.